Hello and welcome everyone to this new episode of our weekly audio talks. This time the topic is grief. I've received a request to talk about this from one of our students. Just recently her grandmother has passed away, and due to these times she couldn't even properly say goodbye, which is a very, very tough situation to be in, and it's totally understandable to feel a lot of grief and be distraught and be very, very sad about something like this. So the question is, of course, how to deal with something like grief, and how to sit in meditation during these times when you're feeling really, really bad. Now, first of all, when you're experiencing this kind of strong sadness and feeling of loss and grief, and you're crying, and you're in this kind of deep, dark hole, apparently, and it seems to be really tough and difficult to sit down and practice meditation. And many people, when they do that during this time, they are of course very confronted with all these thoughts, all these nice memories, and so it brings up all this kind of very intense emotional sadness and grief. And this is not really a pleasant sensation at all for most people, so they want to get rid of it naturally. There is aversion to this sensation. So most people would probably ask for some sort of techniques to get rid of the grief. And this is exactly what this talk is not about. I'm not giving you any technique to get rid of the grief. I'm much more inviting you to give it some space, to allow it, to stop resisting it, to stop fighting against it, and to allow this process to naturally take its course. This process is a really important process, which in modern society is very often neglected. Most people, they would go right back to work. They might be taking a week off or two, and then they go right back to being active, to working. And while they're in their week off or 2 weeks off, they would then probably also distract themselves a lot. And the other extreme would be to completely, utterly get lost within the ocean of grief. So you're kind of drowning in it. That would be the other extreme. One extreme is to seek distraction, try to avoid the feeling, to get out of it, to not experience it. Well, the other is to just kind of surrender to the feeling itself and get lost in it. And for some people, they don't process their grief properly, then it kind of lingers around and it stays in the background, and it even at some point might even become a part of your body. So that a lot of people who do, for example, deeper breathing work, they are often confronted with old grief that they haven't processed properly. So what does it actually mean to properly process grief? It means to neither get lost in it, neither to drown in it, nor to resist it and fight it, but to see it, to honor it, to give it space, to allow it to be there, so that you can understand its process. So you don't have to push against it or get lost in it. The secret key ingredient to any kind of meditation session is, of course, awareness. It's not even a secret ingredient. I have just said that. I don't know why I said that. But the main ingredient, you could say, of any good meditation session is awareness. You are cultivating awareness. You're cultivating access to awareness. So being aware of grief is where we are going with this. We're not going in the direction of getting rid of grief. trying to push it away or something, but by becoming aware of it, seeing directly into its nature, seeing what it does, what is happening to grief if you're not giving any input, if you're neither pushing it away nor latching onto it. If you simply give it space and the grief comes into that space, what does it do when it comes into that space? A space where you're neither pushing it, so you're not connecting to it, you're not identified with it, so to say. You just see that it's a natural feeling that needs to do what it needs to do. What would you observe if you approach your grief like that? And ideally with grief, it is important that you add kindness to the equation. You want to give it a kind, accepting space. So that kindness helps you to not have that pushiness inside, but to give that space a certain warmth, friendliness. And really, for most people, it works to know that grief is a natural emotion that everybody feels who has lost someone that they love a lot. We have to feel these feelings. It would be very strange if you're a human being and you feel nothing after the passing of someone that you loved very much. It is very normal to feel these kind of feelings, as uncomfortable as they might be. It is therefore very important to approach these uncomfortable sensations wisely. If you don't, then these sensations usually bury themselves in some way. They don't get resolved. They can't leave your system. But you might suppress them by keeping yourself busy or distracted. You might even keep yourself busy and distracted by kind of browsing the internet endlessly, listening to a lot of talks about grief, but you're not really processing it that way. You're not giving it space that way. You're simply distracting the mind by paying attention to words and letters, hearing the teachings and reading books about it, etc. It's not a bad thing. It's actually good. It will help you. It might inspire you to actually give your grief space. But if it stays only at that level, it will not help you to process it. In order to process it, you have to become still with it. Meaning you have to actually sit down without any distractions. Maybe close your eyes and just allow your body and mind to feel whatever they need to feel right now. It's almost like you're getting out of yourself, looking at yourself. I like this kind of image that one would look at themselves through the eyes of an angel. You know, like imagine that you're an angel that would see you sitting there in grief. How would you look at yourself? How would you look at your sadness? You would probably look with some sort of understanding, seeing that it's perfectly normal and okay to feel that. That's a very good start. So look at yourself with these really warm, soft eyes of awareness, with the understanding that it's okay to feel, that it's okay to feel bad, and that you are here for yourself in this very difficult time. You're not giving yourself a hard time on top of the hard time that you're experiencing anyways. You open your arms to yourself. As Ajahn Brahm always says it quite nicely, actually, it's the door of my heart is always open to all of myself. And all of yourself includes the grief that you're experiencing right now. So give this process time. It lingers if you want to get rid of it. Some people even might use what I'm saying right now as a quote-unquote technique, kind of want to use this technique to get rid of. And then they wonder, it's like, okay, how long am I supposed to allow my grief to come and hang out and give it space until it goes away? So there's still an agenda. You have to drop this agenda. Stop trying to control or correct or adjust your feelings. Let them be. Let them be in the spirit of, and if this feeling stays for all eternity, I'm at peace with it. That would be the right kind of feeling of letting it be, of letting it go. There is no more investment in getting rid of it, trying to push it away, trying, struggling, any kind of motion like that. You're not approaching the grief trying something. This is not a technique as such. We're not trying anything. We see it. Seeing is not trying. Seeing is seeing. And you're seeing it with kind eyes. Relaxed, open, warm-hearted, friendly. Seeing that it's normal, natural, understanding that it's there. That it's perfectly fine to feel feelings. You can tell yourself even, it's okay to feel that. How would you talk to someone? How would you approach your best friend who have just lost someone that they love a lot? You would probably approach them in a very kind way, right? You would give them a hug maybe. You would listen to them patiently. You would simply give them space, and you would never tell them, like, stop crying, or stop feeling bad. You shouldn't feel that grief. Come on, get back to work, do something, distract yourself. You'd probably be there with them in a very friendly and kind way. In fact, the reason why so many people have trouble with grief for such long amounts of time is because they don't give it space. They're constantly trying to push it down again when it comes up. That's not only a lot of unnecessary work, it also keeps it hanging around. If you don't let it go, it can't go. Think of a balloon that you push, like if you're in a swimming pool and you have this balloon that's filled with helium. I think it can, like one of those balloons that can float. And you're pushing it underneath the surface of the water. You push it down. You can't do that forever. You can't push it down all the time. It wants to come up to the surface, right? It wants to push up. So any chance it gets, it will use that chance to come up to the surface. And when it reaches the surface, all it wants to do is float up. I actually don't know if that works. If a balloon that's filled with helium comes to the surface of the swimming pool, would actually then start to float or stick to the water surface, I'm not sure. You might be able to try that out. But this kind of wish for the balloon, first of all, to come up to the surface, and then there's another striving, the striving to float away. As long as we, however, are busy with pushing the balloon down, we are thinking in the wrong direction. We're thinking in the direction of suppressing it. We're not thinking in the direction of letting it free, letting it be, letting it take its natural course. And exactly that's what you want to do with your grief. Even the sentence, that's what you want to do with your grief, is slightly mistaken. Because there's really nothing to do to this grief. And so silently sitting, allowing it to process itself, is the key to releasing it, is the key to processing it properly, so that it can be seen and it can say goodbye naturally when it's time for it to do so. That doesn't mean that there is one big goodbye that you should kind of wait for when you're looking at your grief, and like kind of hoping for this one moment when it will say goodbye forever and then leave your system so you can continue with life normally. Again, that would reveal your secret agenda to get rid of it. But it's much more, if you observe the process, it comes up in bits and pieces. It doesn't come up usually as just one big compound of grief that leaves your system once and for all, and then you're never experiencing it ever again. It's much more like it breaks up. When you're looking at it, it breaks up into pieces. It becomes smaller, easily digestible, and then it comes up to the surface bit by bit. And every single time when you discover yourself saying to one of those bits like, when is this ever going to stop? It again reveals your agenda. You're not allowing it. You're actually pushing. You're trying to be in control. You're trying. So stop trying and come back to seeing. That is the training. That I would say is what's maybe like the difficult aspect of that is that we are working against the grain of our habits. Our habits are usually about trying and pushing and working and doing and becoming and so forth. This is not. It's the opposite. It's about non-doing, non-becoming, non-trying, and letting things be, seeing them clearly for what they are, seeing the truth of your emotions, seeing without fear, seeing into your fear, seeing without grief, but seeing into your grief, seeing yourself clearly, realizing that everything is just fine the way it is. Everything is okay. There is no mistake in any of the atoms of this universe. Everything goes its perfect way, according to cause and result. Everything that comes is bound to go. It is the nature of all things to do that. The more we learn to be at peace with that, the more we learn to be at peace not only with the light but also with the darkness, the more we come into a state of balance and peace. And so we are able to allow the world to be. That is what love really is complete acceptance of truth. Being able to host truth. Being able to give truth space. Being with it, relaxing with it, not interfering in any way. So that's the kind of direction we are aiming for here. It is probably society or culture that has some sort of twisted ideas about grief or anger, or got all these kind of human emotions that we are all feeling. And because we have those twisted ideas, we react to those sensations improperly. Thus they can perpetuate and they can stay and hang around. And they can't resolve themselves. Instead, they keep spinning around within our minds. So aim for release. Let your grief be free. So this is all that comes to mind about the topic of grief so far. Please do let me know if you have any further questions about this. And if you find that clear enough, I hope it was clear enough, and it helps you with your practice and helps you with actually sitting down and cultivating clear seeing and releasing, opening up to truth and reality. Now, this is all for today. I think that's good enough. So I wish all of you a wonderful week and good health and peace in your heart. Until then, bye-bye.